Hello, 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 everyone. Hope you are doing great. Hope you are doing fine. It's Tone Live. Here we are talking about everything what comes to DeFi, everything what comes to Tone and beyond the Tone, and everything what comes to blockchains, ecosystems for newbies and for the pros. I'm Kiwi, head of community, and here today we have Shawn with us. Quite interesting guest, very exclusive because he comes outside of Tone ecosystem. Therefore, there's a lot to explore in the world of DeFi, in the world of mass adoption of DeFi. And that's actually what we're going to talk about today. Hello, Sean. How are you doing?
Hey, thanks so much. I'm doing really well. Really appreciate the invite today. Excited to be on here and discuss and kind of share how kind of Orbs has some intersections with Ton and the things we've done in the past, and also what we're playing with, or rather building more professionally in DeFi and the broader crypto ecosystem. There we go.
Indeed, looking forward to discuss more about orbs, layers, and much more. But before we proceed, I actually want to talk a little bit about DeFi users grow all of these years. Of course, there are challenges and there are also over challenges when we overcome them. But in your own perspective, are we growing rapidly, quick enough, or is just the beginning, or we actually could scale it up?
Yeah, so I think it's a good question, and I don't really think like anyone has like a magic ball that truly knows the answer. I think in the last few months we've seen like pretty much unprecedented growth ever on chain. But mostly that's I feel like anyways, and not even feel it just has been, it's been mostly on when people say DeFi, it seems like it's mostly on like on Solana and meme coins and the current narratives. So there was a tweet, not to, there was a like an article, a tweet that was everywhere that Solana I think for like the first time ever had the most ever on chain decentralized exchange swaps ever, like since crypto's inception. So that's obviously a very good thing. It's very positive. It's very exciting to see a lot of new people get onboarded in some way, shape, or form to crypto. And maybe it's like but again, like no one has a magic ball. Maybe it's too fast. Maybe it's too fast in the sense that like we've seen this before in the past in 2017 and with NFTs, and we all know how those stories go. We don't have to make it a sad podcast today, but or conversation rather. But yeah, so I think generally I think it's good. It's definitely good to have new people join and have a record high um, level of activity on chain. But I think it's just important to remain like cautious of what the history has shown us what happens when you start to see this huge influx of market participants. But yeah, I think it'd be very foolish to call this a bad thing outright.
Of course, there is nothing bad or good, that we are somewhere in the middle, like India, and for sure. But speaking of new people coming, because of 2025 and January was immersive and very impressive, and same time very crazy, waking up saying, "Oh wow, there is a Trump, there is Solana, there is crypto president right now." That's a mass adoption. Someone been calling. But do the new people actually mean new liquidity within different ecosystem and different chains?
I think generally it depends on where these new people are coming from, right? If you have like someone who who has invested previously in previous cycles, I don't know if that like really counts as new liquidity. Like if you have a guy who's like, oh, every time he sees like Bitcoin on the news or whatever, or saw Trump and he maybe played around like last cycle and some NFTs and stuff. I don't know like how to quantify that, so to speak. But I definitely do think for the first time, there's just it just unless it has to be new liquidity, because you have all-time highs across the board and on DeFi protocols and DEX swaps. So I think there's really, money has to come from somewhere. Unfortunately, we can't grow it from smart contracts. So yeah, I think it's a resounding yes that it is new liquidity being injected into the space.
Speaking of new liquidity and speaking of new users or newbies, so we always say that, or some, I'm not saying they, okay, some people are saying that DeFi still have some of the challenges today, right? Like complex UX, security risk, scalability, gas stations. What are the private keys? What is this? What are that? So, in your own perspective and point of view, do you think we still have a challenges in a way of onboarding users? Or right now, the population is actually very more confident about how get on board into crypto.
Yeah, I think it's remains like a huge problem. Even like when you think about your own onboarding experience, and you download a wallet for the first time. Well, even before that, just signing up for a centralized exchange, and having which like Coinbase. We'll use Coinbase for example because I think it's the easiest and it's one I'm personally familiar with. It's like very even that like isn't easy. You have to submit KYC. You have to give them all your information since you were born. You have to hand over a bunch of personal information that like isn't cool. I think personally. And then from there, if you want to take that money off of the sex, which I always encourage everyone to do. It's but even though I encourage it, it's obviously like a huge challenge. You download any wallet, and you get about like 5 different pop-ups telling you, hey, this if you lose, this is your private key. If you lose this, you will lose all the money to your funds. Okay, so I write it down, I put it in a safe, whatever. Okay, or whatever system someone has, and then and then you go to send, a transaction on chain, and immediately, you get more pops up saying, check that this is the right address, check that this is the right chain, check that this is the right currency, because otherwise, again, you can lose all your all your money instantly. So there's a lot of there's a huge amount of complexity with just onboarding alone. And once a user, or I don't know, our market participant, whatever you want to call them, gets familiar with that, there remains huge challenges on chain. Like some of them we have on the board here, like gas fees on Ethereum are still pretty, like, they're not. I feel like, knock on wood, they're not as bad this cycle. But last cycle, you would mint an NFT and you would pay like $500 in gas. You lose, you forget your passcode, and there's no one to help you on your wallet. So I think, and then bridging is another security risk. When you go, say like you onboard through Ethereum, but all your friends are trading shitcoins on Solana, so you want to bridge to Solana, and you don't know how. So I think just alone the knowledge gap is really high. The bar for knowledge is super 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 high. And yeah, and I feel like most people that enter the space today are really doing it because they're FOMO'd a bit. They see like this guy on Twitter, he made like $1 million, and they wanted to get on chain as soon as and as quickly as possible. And I think it only increases the chance for mishaps to happen. So yeah, it's definitely something that everyone in the space, I think, is obviously working towards. Abstraction is becoming more and more trendy. I don't know, like, if there's a chance for shilling later, but like Ton is like a great use case for onboarding. But yeah, generally those are my thoughts on the matter.
I appreciate for sharing. Yeah, I think FOMO actually plays a big role in that, especially right now, like for the past few months. But I always like to share the story of my grandma. And then she called me one day, and she likes to watch TV and she likes to watch news. She called me one day and she said, like, "What is Bitcoin? Oh my God, it's so high. Do we have Bitcoin? How do I get a Bitcoin?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, grandma. Like, you already have a Telegram, right? You just need to click here, and here is your wallet, and here's your Bitcoin. You can keep them." And slowly by slowly, she actually understood the concept of the blockchain, the wallet. So, of course, onboarding never has been easy, even to the internet technology or even to the technologies that people just start exploring from the development part. And simplicity is surely the key. But yet, we are growing faster enough to improve that experience for sure. And looking forward to see even more. But speaking of the complex design and simple design, simple onboarding, and much more. What are the blockchain layers? Because we have people who already know what DeFi is. Simple things like staking, NFTs, swap bridges. But what are the layers? Some of them hearing it for the very first time. I think you can cover it the best part as possible.
Yeah, sure. So I'll give maybe just like a really brief overview. So you have layer ones. It's your kind of I don't know, a good term is like a foundational layer. It's where things can be built upon it. It's like, and good examples of these are Ethereum, Solana, Cardano. These are and even Bitcoin can argue be a layer one. They are, they're built in such a way that they typically have specific use cases. So, for example, with Ethereum, you can deploy smart contracts. That was the big thing for why Vitalik wanted to create Ethereum, was because of the inability to deploy smart contracts on BTC. Obviously, now we have Ordinals, so it's a bit of back and forth, but it could definitely, Ethereum was the first mover in that regard. And where was I going? And then in terms of other layer ones, they've made other design decisions. Like Cardano has different things. Polkadot has different things. Solana has is not things different from just the language in which they are written in. Whether Ton is a layer one that's written in a different language and has a completely different way that on-chain consensus works, for example. So yeah, these are your layer ones. They're typically, I'd say that they're purpose built, and they're ground zero for things that which can be built on top of it. Layer twos, most people, I think the general consensus is layer twos are scaling layers. So you have a blockchain already, a layer one, and in some way, shape, or form, you want to improve it somehow. So there's all sorts of different ways that this is done. I mean, a new, I think it would be like an essay if I was to get into it. There's a new one that goes live every day. Some things change, like the way that gas is handled. Some have different validators and consensus. There's really a myriad of ways that people kind of solve this quote unquote scalability problem with Ethereum, and most layer twos are specifically EVM based. Layer threes, which is what Orbs calls itself, it starts to get a little bit more opaque, because I don't think, I personally believe the market really hasn't reached a consensus on, one, if layer threes are real, and two, if like what really quantifies as a layer three. Some people say a layer three is a dApp chain. So like Hyperliquid is a layer three. They have their own chain, and it's, you can trade on their chain for liquidity and ease of transfer, fast. I'm trying to think of the word to say it, but fast, but quick transfers, as opposed to doing it on ETH or a respective chain. In Orb's case specifically, we call our layer three as a layer that sits in between layer ones and twos, and enhances the actual capabilities of not the chain, but the smart contract. So we have a few protocols that do this. I'll just give one for now, because I'm sure there's more time for later. I would assume anyways, to get into it. But we enable on-chain advanced order types. So limit orders and DCA orders, or time weighted average price orders, if you're a little bit more used to trading, right into a DEX's UI. So these are kind of three. I think these are the three things. Yeah, these are the three chains, and yeah, I think I covered more or less what most people use them for.
Appreciate it. That was very clear explanation. I mean, I'm sure it is, but it's not, guys. Very welcome to join our communities and learn a bit more. But speaking of layers, speaking of different UI design, different experience of onboarding, swaps, and much more, there is a concept of understanding that there is an invisible blockchain, right? Do you think there is a future looking like invisible blockchain? And how do you take this concept?
I think I think I think there has to be. Like I don't know how else we really like truly scale. There was just it just this just reminded me that there was Jesse Polk, the one of I think it was Jesse or maybe it was Brian Armstrong. I don't remember which one, but one of the big guys from Coinbase was discussing that they want to, I believe it's so that you enable DEX trading in Coinbase. And when they say DEX trading, they don't mean like a traditional place where you go and you swap and you have LPs that you can add to into, but a decentralized exchange, almost like a decentralized centralized exchange. So Coinbase does the trading on your behalf, and you actually get the assets in your Coinbase wallet. And their big argument is that users shouldn't know, and honestly shouldn't probably even care whether or not they're trading on or off chain, and it should really the best UX is one that happens without the users even knowing that it's happening. And I mean, you have this, I think like everyone knows the classic example of like, you have this with banking. You swipe your card, you don't know how any of the banking infrastructure works, but you have money on a credit card, virtual money, and somehow it manifests in the real world to buy eggs and milk. So this is like obviously I think the level that everyone in the industry is more or less building to, and understands without it, it's not really gonna truly ever pick up. I think, at least in terms of like to the level of which it is like a Visa or Mastercard, seamlessly integrated. And we also see this at Orbs on a more close to home level. We see this in one of the protocols we're building, which is Liquidity Hub. So essentially, what it is it allows when you go to a DEX, we'll use QuickSwap as an example because it's integrated there and working. We do a request for quote (RFQ), and essentially the user sends an intent to Orbs's L3 that they want to swap, say, Medic for QuickSwap token. A request for quote then happens, so it gets a quote back from everyone, all of the on-chain solvers. So you have different solvers that find routes for orders on chain to give users the cheapest price. And the simplest way to explain that as possible. So you have like Odos, they just launched a token, Paraswap, of course I'm blanking at Rango, a bunch of there's like over 15 of them. And we've also integrated off-chain solvers from these are market makers who have their own private liquidity, or they hedge from an exchange, whatever they do, or arbitrage rather from an exchange. And then you have the swaps, the liquidity pools on QuickSwap itself, and they all compete more like, obviously it's not like a real competition, but they all give back a price that they're willing to fulfill the order in, and the lowest one takes the order. And this isn't something that the user, it's not like the user gets to see all these options and select the cheapest one, which I mean, you have this in some places. We've abstracted all of the complexity away on their behalf. So, there's no reason for the user to check all these different venues and see all these different options. And in our opinion, it just happens, and they get the best price, and everyone's happy. They don't have to search, and there's no confusion, and the DEX doesn't lose to these different types of aggregators that are on chain. So yeah, this is so. I mean, to round things out, I think the invisible blockchain is inevitable, and really you have different protocols, I think, already optimizing and building for that future.
Speaking of building the future, I'm actually very wondering why Orbs? I mean, Ton, It's very understandable, right? The open network. Tonstakers is the place where you stake Ton. But how about Orbs? Why is such name has been chosen? What is the story behind of it?
Honestly, I really don't know. It's it's before my time. Orbs is like we kind of joked that Orbs is like a Dino project. You know, we were Orbs did the sell. Back when Ethereum was raising more or less. A few months after. So there's really I couldn't tell you. It's just been something that I know. I've done some like internal discussions like in terms of like branding. Like, hey, maybe we want to like change up the logo or maybe like even do like a rebrand. And I always get like crazy pushback. Like, no, like Orbs is us. It's our identity. So the guys here that I work with every day are very deeply connected to the name much more than I am.
I surely can understand why there's a certain connection, but as the brand name or a project name, you also have your certain own connection. Like, there is a reason why, for example, myself joined Tonstakers, right? Because I respect this in decentralization, and I respect that I have a power to use my assets as I want to, right? Like stake anytime and then unstake them anytime. It's very decentralized for me, and it's also very freedom of action, and it's also very secure. And I like that the community is very open and it's very vibrant. So that's the value to me. And speaking of orbs, what kind of value do you have in mind when I ask a question? What do you think of orbs?
I missed it. What was the last bit? What do you think of Orbs when you hear Orbs?
Yeah,
Or
like for you, when I say orbs, what kind of connection do you have to that?
yeah, so to that, I mean, I think I have a little bit of different connection just because I mean, I'm employed, but generally, like I think it's a good question. I really haven't thought about it too much. I think in general, it's just like we kind of view it as a very long-standing name that has survived. I don't know if survives the right term necessarily, but has been around and continued to build um, through all of these cycles. So in terms of like, I don't have such like of an artistic like connection, but I do have a practical one that Orbs has been it survived. It's been around all these years. I think that more or less shows it will continue to be around, whatever may come of the industry. Who knows what's in store for us all. And I think it also shows some level of if you want to take it further, like some level of flexibility. It's Orbs is able to change towards the time. It's able to pivot. It's able to go in new directions quickly and to really offer unique things to the market.
Unique. I really love that. It sounds very, very unique to me. So we've been speaking today a lot, but last but not the least, I actually want to discuss a bit about the world that's fully powered by DeFi. I remember how you were, there is a feeling when you're watching 80s or 90s movies and you take yourself as a perspective what's coming next in the close future, like and then sometimes you say, wow, this actually came true. Or the concept of Simpsons that, whenever there was in a cartoon, everything comes true. So let's right now immerse ourselves in a vision of how the world would look like if was fully powered by DeFi. What do you think?
I think you would have a world that's more. One, it'd be like one. I personally think it would be. I think there's. I was about to say amazing, but then I like catch myself. I don't think it would be like if everything to the extreme was powered by DeFi. I don't know if it would be as utopic as I was first imagining. You would have some extremes too. Like you would have to like bribe maybe like somehow the consensus bribes would become very very exaggerated in politics, but in terms of like maybe if I like in terms of like things people talk about, perhaps like elections happening on chain. I think it's a no-brainer, and I don't know why. Well, I mean, I do know like the why is like for there's resistance to change. There's a way that it's been doing it. There's these companies that lobby governments to use these voting systems. Blah 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 blah. But I think doing elections on chain would be amazing because you can prove who you are. It's very transparent and open. It's almost more or less impossible, assuming that validators are decentralized, to manipulate the results. So I think this would be like really amazing. If you go to like a more DeFi native, if you will, use case, I think loans is I think it would be a more I think financial instruments would in general be more accessible to people who are maybe don't have access or for whatever reason, whether it be credit or something else, or just the country that they're in, they just wouldn't, the ability to get a loan in a currency that is stable would be amazing. Whether that currency is Bitcoin, Ton, Orbs, or dollars, whatever. It doesn't really matter. Just the chain component of actually powering that being widespread would be amazing. I'm just trying to think of one more to kind of round it out. But in general, I think it would be, if the things that people talk about, whether it's like elections or using financial instruments more widespread, or being able to provide a store of value for people in countries where their currency has high levels of inflation and fluctuates quite frequently. I think it's a no-brainer that the positives so far outweigh any potential negatives. But yeah, so I think it would be more or less amazing, just to end.
For sure. Sometimes it's very amazing to see that there are already cartoons and the books and literature for kiddos to learn what blockchain is, what Bitcoin is, and I'm so much wondering what comes next when it comes to the new generation, the ones who are already right now exploring memes or NFTs or even real DeFi futures. So the future is bright, and we are the ones who are building it right now. Because if we are not, then who? Any last words from you, please?
No, I just wanted to thank you just once again for having me on. Really appreciate the invite. I'd encourage everyone to check out Orbs, because I think what we're building is quite unique and interesting. And I'm not just saying that because I work there. I think the market is quite receptive to what we're building. Our protocols are very widely integrated, and it's something that I feel quite proud of. I've been working on it for this specific thing for 2 years now, over 2 years. So yeah, thanks again.
And thank you. Thank you. Come more often. We are happy to share with the world of the future of possibilities and opportunities, because the future is multi chain, and we have to share the total collective experience to make the future come true the way we see it and the way we want it. Thank you so much, Sean. Speak to you soon, maybe in a year or maybe even earlier.
Speak soon. Thank you again. Bye
Thank
bye.
you.